Some trips are not just about the places you visit. They become the stories you keep telling, the moments that bring people closer, and the memories that somehow change you. And before this one even began,
This is crazy.
I had a feeling it could become one of those trips. We were about to start a 7-day road trip across New Zealand, from Auckland in the North Island, all the way to Christchurch in the South Island. Along the way, we'd cross between islands, explore some of the country's most iconic places, and try to experience the best of New Zealand in just 1 week. Warning though, if you stay until the end, you'll probably want to do this trip too. Welcome to Across New Zealand. My fiancé and I had been working the entire summer to make this trip happen, so the anticipation had been building for months. But what made it even more special was the fact that it wasn't just going to be us. My mom and my godparents were joining too.
Plane has landed early. I haven't seen my mom in 2 years. I'm super anxious, super happy, super emotional that I'm about to hug her again. And my godparents are also coming, so how can you not be excited? Whew.
After an emotional reunion, Auckland welcomed them in the way Auckland knows best. But that didn't stop us from enjoying 10 incredible days before the road trip, exploring the city and its stunning surroundings.
We're so good in having fun. Girls dancing wild, chasing the sun. Hey girls, we don't wait for perfect plans. Girls, we just live it 'cause we can. Laughing through the highs and lows, we save the world with our souls.
My fiancé had been working for a little longer, but towards the end, she joined us. And at that point, we were finally ready to kick things off. This time, we decided to rent a proper road trip car instead of a camper van, and stay in different motels, lodges, and hotels along the way.
Steady.
Let's
Smile.
Our first stop was Rotorua. Rotorua is one of the most unique places in New Zealand. It's famous for its geothermal activity, which means that here, the earth doesn't stay quiet. It bubbles, steams, smells like sulfur, and constantly reminds you that there is a volcanic world moving underneath your feet. But Rotorua is not just about geysers and hot pools. It's also one of the most important places in the country to experience Maori culture, with stories, traditions, and landscapes that are deeply connected. After leaving our stuff in the little cabin we rented, we went for a walk around town. And we quickly discovered a small public pool in the middle of the park where everyone was dipping their feet into the thermal water. And of course, we joined.
Acá me agarro hongo alto son.
We then headed to the Redwood Street Walk, which has these crazy light installations and 28 suspended bridges hanging over a redwood forest.
This is crazy.
And even if you don't pay for the ticket to walk across the bridges, the whole place still feels surreal. We ended the day at the hot thermal pools offered by our accommodation, which honestly was exactly what we needed after the first day on the road. Day 2 started with a very simple plan. Explore one of the strangest landscapes I've ever seen, Waiotapu Thermal Wonderland. But first, we made a quick stop at Lady Knox Geyser, just a few minutes before entering the park. Every day, at 10:15, the geyser is triggered by park staff. sending hot water and steam into the air. After that, we headed to Waiatapu, and the experience was crazy. Waiatapu is known as one of New Zealand's most colorful geothermal areas, and the colors here are completely natural, created by minerals rising from deep underground. You walk past steaming craters, bubbling mud pools, bright mineral lakes, and hot springs that look almost unreal. And the most famous of all is Champagne Pool, a giant steaming pool that bubbles constantly, as if the earth itself was breathing underneath the surface. It's beautiful, but also slightly unsettling, because everywhere you look, you're reminded that this landscape is very much alive.
If you hear a siren for more than 30 seconds, please evacuate the park immediately.
However, even if we were ready to leave Rotorua and continue towards our next location, there was still one very important thing we hadn't done yet. Something you absolutely cannot miss if you visit Rotorua.
So, we've parked here, and now...
Relaxing in a natural stream of geothermal water. Let me tell you, there's one you can reach with a short walk. So, yes, Rotorua, you are a gem. Our cabin for the night was strategically located in Ohakune, so we could split the long drive between Rotorua and Wellington, but also so we could admire the highest volcano in the North Island, Mount Ruapehu. Before getting there, we made a quick stop at Hukea Falls. And then headed to Taupo, the town named after the biggest lake in the country. And just like that, the road trip kept moving south. Our final destination today was the capital of New Zealand, Wellington.
Day 3. Let's go.
We arrived at the hotel in the afternoon, which gave us the evening to explore the city. And after spending so much time surrounded by nature, Wellington felt like New York City for a moment. But once that first impact passed, I started to see it differently. Wellington is actually calm.
What would you like? Over here.
And for this road trip, it also felt like something else. The final chapter of the North Island. The city sits between steep hills and a wide harbor, exposed to the winds of Cook Strait, which is why it has such a strong reputation for being one of the windiest cities in the world. But Wellington also has character. Its energy feels surprisingly harmonious, and the landscape gives you this constant feeling of being right on the edge of something. Because from here, the road doesn't just continue. It crosses the sea. That's why we ended the night earlier than usual, because the next morning we'd be taking the ferry to the South Island. And honestly, just wait and see.
We're at the parking lot where all the cars are gonna check into the ferry. Ferry is right there at the bottom. Check out that beautiful sunrise. I'm gonna miss New Zealand so much. To everybody that lives in New Zealand, you're a bunch of lucky bastards.
I have to admit, I thought the ferry journey was going to feel endless. But once we entered the Marlborough Sounds, those 3.5 hours flew by. These aren't technically fjords, even though they might look like it. They are drowned river valleys. Old valleys slowly flooded by the sea, creating a maze of calm water, forested hills, islands, and hidden bays. It felt less like arriving in the South Island and more like being slowly introduced to it. And after the ferry winds through the Marlborough Sounds, Picton appears quietly between the hills and the harbor. Picton is a small port town at the top of the South Island, and for anyone crossing from Wellington, it's usually the first real taste of what's coming next. It's not a big city, and that's exactly the point. It feels calm, compact, and easy to walk through. Almost like the South Island is giving you a softer introduction before the long drives begin again. We had planned to stay 2 nights here and use it as a base to explore the top of the South Island before continuing south towards the next chapter of the road trip. And I have to say, our hotel in Picton won the award for best day of the whole trip. This underrated town is definitely more than just a ferry port. The vibe felt super chill. We saw a stingray moving around the boat, and I went for a quick dip in the water, which was absolutely freezing. Today, we were heading to Nelson for the day, and officially this is when I welcome the winding roads. My fiance suggested stopping at Cable Bay, also known as Rotokura. At first, it feels like a quiet little coastal stop. Clear water, a pebble beach, and hills wrapping around the bay. But this place has more going on than it seems. It sits beside Horoirangi Marine Reserve, making it a great spot for snorkeling, kayaking, and rock pooling at low tide, when you might find starfish, crabs, sea slugs, and all those tiny creatures that make the coastline feel alive. In our case, though, it was this very particular dock that decided to keep us company.
Así que caminamos de ahí, nos vinimos hasta acá y se fue por el agua y vino a estar con nosotros.
Hola, guapo, ¿cómo estás? Ay, nene.
We ended up spending most of our time in Nelson having lunch and taking a chill walk at Tahuna Nui Beach before heading back to Picton.
I got a letter this morning, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a letter this morning, boy. Hey, hey, honey. I got a letter this morning, gonna see you when the sun goes down.
But on the way back, we stopped at one of the most amazing sunset viewpoints over the Marlborough Sound, Cullen Point Lookout. And honestly, I'll let the images speak for themselves.
Hey, hey, honey, I couldn't read it for crying. Gonna see you when the sun goes down. I got a gal in Georgia, boy. Hey, hey, honey, I got a gal in Georgia, boy. See you when the sun goes down.
After a cozy dinner by the fire, we slowly said goodbye to Picton and hello to our next destination. Our final destination today was Kaikoura. Kaikoura might be one of the most unique stops of this entire road trip. But first, we tried Toasties Lords for breakfast. And yeah, they are the Lords of Toasties. It's a small coastal town where snow-capped mountains rise almost directly from the ocean and where the sea is full of life. The name itself comes from Maori. Kai means food and koura means crayfish, which makes perfect sense in a place famous for seafood. So the first thing we did after checking into our motel was go and try some of that famous crayfish for lunch. The best spot, suggested by pretty much the whole internet, was Kaikoura Seafood Barbecue Kiosk. And it's exactly the kind of place you want it to be. Informal, open air, right by the sea, and completely focused on the food. But what really makes Kaikoura special is what happens just offshore. A deep underwater canyon brings rich marine life close to the coast, making this one of the best places in New Zealand to see whales, dolphins, and fur seals. It feels like the land and the ocean are both trying to steal the scene. After lunch, we headed to the fur seal colony, where you get to step briefly into their world while they play, rest, swim, feed their babies, and just go about their day. Unfortunately, we couldn't see the mountains properly at first because the clouds were covering them. But we knew that once the sky cleared, we'd be in for something special. The next day was our last full day on the road trip, and we had planned a very special activity. Kayaking around the fur seal colony, with the chance to see marine life from the water. So once again, we called it an early night. The next morning, we finally got to see the mountains clearly in daylight. And they were stunning. My godfather decided to have a chill morning while the rest of us headed to the Kaikoura kayaking office, ready for one last adventure. They're taking us in a van to a spot where we're going to kayak for about an hour and a half. Hopefully we'll see dolphins. Well, obviously I think we'll see seals, and if we're extremely lucky, whales. My mom was nervous because she had never kayaked before.
¿Estás pronta, Memo? Sí, pronta. Obviamente.
And we start. Woo! Al revés, el remo. Vamos, Memo.
But once we got on the water, she started to realize just how beautiful the experience was. Unfortunately, this was the only real action we got during the tour.
1, 2, 3, voy.
But kayaking across calm water on a beautiful sunny day, with those mountains in the background, and watching my mom face one of her fears made that morning truly epic. After that, we walked through Kaikoura town center. It's relaxed, colorful, and full of nature. A town that, in many ways, really captures the essence of New Zealand. We even got to see a primary school practicing Maori songs, which made the whole place feel even more alive. And then came our last sunset of the road trip. Probably the most incredible one of them all. At that point, there was this feeling in the group that was hard to describe. A feeling of being thankful for the company we had given each other, for the stories we had collected, for the amount of little moments that would probably stay with us for years, and for knowing that all these experiences had strengthened our bond even more. We all knew that after this, we would be thrown back into our own realities. Different countries, different routines, different versions of normal life. But it felt like this trip had given us a massive hug. One that recharged us, filled us up, and gave us the strength to keep moving through life. And somehow, that last sunset represented that hug. The next day, we returned the car in Christchurch, flew back to Auckland, and had one final day to pack our bags. My family would be traveling back to Uruguay and we'd be staying in New Zealand for another 10 days. And as always, farewells are never easy for me, especially when I don't know exactly when I'll see them again. The whole trip back, I was trying not to cry in front of my friend's mom, who drove us to the airport. Don't worry, I usually let myself cry, just not there, you know? But this time, I wasn't just saying goodbye to my family. I was also slowly saying goodbye to New Zealand, because my time in this country was almost over. But not yet. I still had one trip before heading back to Europe. So stay tuned, hit subscribe, and I promise you, this next one, this final one, won't let you down. See you in the next adventure.
Hope it's closed well.